I will try to present you some typology of possible models of thinking about teacher-disciple relationship, and there are three lines of, I would say, lines of distinction according to which we can distinguish different models. So if we statistically, it gives us 8 possible models combining all these distinctions. But of course, these lines are to some extent connected. So it is not there is not 8 equally possible models, but the first line of distinction is the nature of spiritual wisdom or knowledge. The second, I would say, the ontology of the bond between teacher and disciple. And the third is the structure of the community, which is brought about by the teacher-disciple relationship. So, as regards the first line of the distinction, so the nature of spiritual wisdom or knowledge, I would distinguish 2 models. I call them, the first I would call the non-conceptual wisdom model, and the second, the hermeneutical knowledge model. So, as regards the non-conceptual wisdom model, the main characteristics of this model are the following. The wisdom is regarded as some kind of participation in or merging with the source of wisdom, and is conceived as non-conceptual or trans-conceptual. The teacher is regarded as someone who has merged with the source, and by consequence, this teacher achievement is hidden from the disciple. As a consequence, the attitude of the disciple should be characterized by some unconditioned trust to the teacher, submission and obedience to the teacher, and some non-questioning attitude of mind. The disciple should even not pose the questions, just receive what the influence of the teacher, which the teacher can exhibit in different ways, by some sayings, by some actions, but what is important is this non-questioning attitude of mind from the part of the disciple. By contrast, in the hermeneutical knowledge model, wisdom is, or knowledge is regarded as an outcome of some process of interpretation of particular of the sacred texts of a given tradition. So as for that reason, the questions, argumentation, dialogue are essential parts of the very process of learning. It is impossible to learn without posing questions, and sometimes even without arguing with the teacher. So the teacher-disciple relationship is much more dense and dynamic and even dialectical in comparison with the first model. This the first distinction. The second distinction is based on the way in which we conceive the, I say, ontological strength of the teacher-disciple bond. The first model I call the teacher-medium model, because the teacher is regarded as some, in a sense, representative or even personification of the ultimate, and the bond with the teacher is a way for the disciple to the union with the ultimate. So there is no possibility for the disciple to attain the union with the divine reality without or outside this bond, and in more extreme forms, this, for example, I read the Sikh understanding which was expressed by Mohinder Singh in one conversation. There is a identification between the merging with the Guru and merging with the infinite, in the divine. By consequence, there is a need of having for the disciple should have some human person as his or her the teacher, who plays the central key role in his or her spiritual journey. And the second model is the model I called the equally immediate model. Because in this model the divine reality is regarded as equally present in or available for both the teacher and the disciple. And the teacher is a person who only helps the disciple to acknowledge this presence, to understand it, and to respond to this immediate presence of the ultimate. But the relationship of the disciple with the divine, the ultimate, is to some extent ontologically independent of from the relationship with the teacher. By consequences, in this model there is a possibility of having many teachers, and in some forms no one should be claimed as a the teacher or the principal. Maybe not, the disciple may have no one principal teacher. He may learn from many persons in different points of his life and in situations to understand this immediate divine presence within his heart. The second line of distinction is the structure of the community, which is brought about by this teacher-disciple relationship. Third. Oh, sorry, I said second. Sorry. The first model is the spiritual hierarchy model, or spiritual hierarchy, I would say. In this model, the religious community, within the religious community, there is a precise and a strictly established distinction between the roles of the teacher or master and that of the disciple. So some persons are regarded as teachers and some as disciples, and there is a distinction, some maybe even gap between those two. And also there are some established lineages of spiritual masters, and in some examples of this model, established hierarchy of spiritual teachers also. In the second model is the communal model, I would say. In this model there is a universal need of human help in one's spiritual journey. So no person can regard him or herself, or can be regarded as not a disciple. Everyone is a disciple to some extent. Also, everyone can play the role of the teacher for others. So there is a universal ability to help others in their spiritual journey. There is also some universal possibility of changing teachers or having many teachers. This is also some similarity to the previous distinction. And at least in one example of this model, some Christian understanding, the community as a whole is regarded as the teacher, as a transmitter of spiritual knowledge. Community is more important, as a whole, is more important than particular persons within this community. I want also to point to some commonalities across models we detect, which are common to all models, all traditions, despite the way of conceiving other points. The first commonality is the necessity of human help in one's spiritual journey. You know, in all models, people should not engage in spiritual journey without looking for human help. The other commonality is some, I would say, reciprocal character of the teacher-disciple relationship. It means that even in those models when teacher is much more, or when disciple should be obedient to the teacher, should have a non-questioning attitude of mind. Even in those models, the teacher is someone also can learn something in the process from the disciple. So this relationship is not totally asymmetrical; it's reciprocal. Across all models and all traditions, we detected some common important characteristic of both teacher and disciple, which are valued as very as a necessary characteristic for the teacher and for the disciple. As regard to the teacher should be deeply engaged in pursuing the spiritual path, also during the learning process. The teacher should have knowledge and understanding of spiritual resources of her or his tradition, should be able to discern particular personal needs of each disciple, should exhibit some moral characteristics such as no selfish motives, and should be respectful, compassionate, and patient with respect to the students. As regards to the disciple, in each model's disciple should be eager and devoted to the spiritual path, should be humble and open-minded, and full of respect and trust towards the teacher. So these are the main commonalities which were detected